my God. A pervasive cultural idiom that has been around for as long as I can remember, and no doubt long before. It's an expression that is used as a means to express surprise and/or delight, and will no doubt continue to survive, if not exactly in those words. For someone like me, it gives me momentary pause to wonder who or to what God people are actually referring to when they use that expression. Here in North America, and certain areas of those where the Christian world reigns supreme, they are no doubt referring to the God of the Bible, someone, something, simply named God. If Emperor Constantine had been accepted into Mithraism, they rejected him. Instead of Christianity, those same people would now be shouting, "Oh, my Mithra." To that point, if some of those people were born 6,000 years ago in ancient Sumeria, their supreme god would have been Anu, and their expression of surprise would have likely have been, "Oh my Anu." 4,000 years ago, the ancient Egyptians would have been shouting, "Oh my Ra." 3,000 years ago, the ancient Greeks would have been shouting, "Oh my Zeus." 2,500 years ago, the Romans would have been shouting, "Oh my Jupiter." And 1,000 years ago, the ancient Scandinavians would have been shouting, "Oh my Odin." And so it has likely been for tens of thousands of years or so since mankind has been a sentient being and has had the imagination to create gods. The point I'm simply trying to make here is that your God, the God you are convinced beyond a doubt is the one true God, is just the God that happened to be worshipped in the part of the world which you were born. You are influenced by your family, your friends, your neighbors, and your culture. There is no personal revelation involved, no divine interaction, simply blind luck and a matter of timing and geography. That is, if being indoctrinated since childhood into believing that a super being, invisible, intangible, inaudible, and imperceptible in every way, actually exists, and one that also demands a part of your income and your undying devotion upon threat of eternal pain and suffering, can be considered lucky. Then there's Mr. Pascal, Blaise Pascal. From Wikipedia, Pascal's wager is an argument in apologetic philosophy devised by the 17th century French philosopher, mathematician, and physicist Blaise Pascal. Based on the assumption that the stakes are infinite if God exists, and that there is at least a small probability that God in fact exists, Pascal argues that a rational person should live as though God exists and seek to believe in God. If God does not actually exist, such a person will have only a finite loss, whereas they stand to receive infinite gains and avoid infinite losses. Let me paraphrase. If you believe in a Christian God and the Christians are right, you can go to heaven. If you dismiss God and you're wrong, then you suffer in hell. If you believe and you're wrong, nothing is lost. So what harm is there in believing? The correct response to that is, I just can't start believing. You can't turn on belief. No one can. I need convincing of the idea before I can consider it fact, same as you. Then there's the wasted time, effort, and money if you spend your entire life being shackled to your particular religion, trying to get into heaven or Valhalla. Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. John Lennon. But we know of many, many other gods, and that the monotheistic version of God, whether Christian, Jewish, or Islamic, is just another in the long line of gods. Pascal's wager, a Christian wager, falls apart quickly when you realize that you might be believing in the wrong god. The Norse god, Odin, would not be pleased. Each cultural group throughout ancient history has evoked the power of gods to explain the unexplainable. Even Isaac Newton evoked God to explain the variation of the motions of the planets when his mathematics failed. But if you could go back in time to the city of Babylon in the second half of the second millennium BCE, the inhabitants living there would surely argue as fervently for their god of water and vegetation as a Christian might argue for their god. The god of water and vegetation is Marduk, and he resided in the temple of Isagila. At least the Babylonians had a name for their god. The Christian, Jewish, and Mormon religions just have a generic god. The proof of Marduk was the seasonal rising of the waters of the Tigris, Each year he would control the heavens, release rain, causing the river to rise. What more proof would you need? Can you prove to me that Marduk did not control the river water and the related growing season? Can you? He's just one of thousands of gods that controlled the ancient world and the present. Can you disprove any of them? Simply put, no, of course not. So when you pray, worship, offer sacrifices and money to the collection plate, you had best be sure that you're following the right God, not just a God who became the de facto standard because a 4th century Roman emperor said so. Perhaps I should start to seek to believe in God as Pascal suggests. Well, I am. I talk to believers, ask questions, evaluate the answers, and ask more questions. I make these videos and engage with theists and atheists alike. But I'd like to know, which of the following 2,645 gods do you believe is the real God?